You have to get a tattoo of a politician on your back. You are offered Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. Who do you get? You have 4 seconds to decide.
Are you really going to open up that fight?
No, I'm not. Joining us today, he is my congressman. He's also the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Please welcome back Adam Schiff.
It's great to be with you.
So thanks for taking the time. You know, the past week, a lot of this broke at the end of the week, but I really wanted to talk to you about it. So in the wake of the Roger Stone commutation, you basically made the argument that the remedy is the election. And I totally appreciate that. I agree with that. Everything should be focused on that way of holding Trump accountable and saving the country. But I actually just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you're imagining happening after. And as much as we need to focus on the election, the one area where I think I actually just don't know what happens. You know, let's say we are fortunate enough to do what we have to do to defeat Trump. We have these rulings that mean we're not getting tax returns till maybe next year. How do you imagine your role in looking back when Trump is gone, if Trump is gone, to make sure we get to the bottom of what happened, that we undo some of these cover-ups, that we look into some of the ways in which Bill Barr tried to subvert the justice system? What is your sort of overarching goal next year to make sure we don't let some of these crimes just pass us by?
Well, I would say a few things. First, I would say that between now and the fall, our goal has to be exposure of all the wrongdoing. Let the people see what they have in Donald Trump, how much corruption there is, in the people around him, expose that to the sunlight, because we know the Republicans aren't going to take action to hold anybody accountable. They proved that during the impeachment when we presented overwhelming evidence of other abuses of power. So up until November, I think exposure of wrongdoing. After the election, after he's gone, then I think we have to continue to expose what he did while he was in office, because, of course, the administration has stonewalled us in every way it can. It has stonewalled every subpoena, every request for information. So there's a lot more evidence of the president's wrongdoing that is being withheld and will be withheld as long as he's in office. But it's also going to be vitally important, and indeed, I hope that we'll be introducing this package soon, to introduce and pass into law a whole set of post-Watergate reforms, our own post-Watergate reforms or Trumpgate reforms that attack the abuse of the pardon power, that strengthen the independence of the Justice Department, that protect inspector generals, that provide for expedited court process for congressional subpoenas, that have an enforcement mechanism for the emoluments clause, any number of things that we thought were inviolate norms that we now realize, nope, you can violate these as long as one party has become a cult of personality around the president. You can violate these norms with impunity. We need to put this into law. So that package is going to be very important. We will hopefully introduce it, even if we can't get it made law this year. I think that will be a very early priority in the new Congress. In terms of the president, his own liability and people around him, that will be a difficult decision for Joe Biden and for his attorney general, because, the evidence is there. If you look at just, one example, the Justice Department indicted Michael Cohen for a campaign fraud scheme that was directed and coordinated by individual one, Donald J. Trump. They argued that Michael Cohen should go to jail for his participation in that scheme. So what is the argument to say, well, Michael Cohen should go to jail, but the guy that did the directing and did the coordinating should get a pass? That's a difficult argument to make, but it's an issue that Joe Biden will have to weigh given the circumstances after the election. But I think those are all the steps we'll have to undertake: exposure now, exposure later, reforms, and ultimately it'll be up to the Justice Department and the new president in terms of what repercussions go beyond that.
And do you see as part of this legislation any strengthening of the ways by which Congress can enforce its subpoenas?
Absolutely. In fact, I would put near the top of the list expedited court process for the enforcement of congressional subpoenas. We may go beyond that and revive inherent contempt as well, but there has to be a mechanism to enforce our oversight function in Congress. Otherwise, Congress becomes a paper tiger, incapable of holding any administration to account. So that, I think so many of the other reforms are going to live or die upon whether Congress can enforce them. And to enforce them, you need to be able to do oversight. So yes, I would put that very near the top of the list.
Yeah, there was this strange moment where when the Supreme Court ruling first came out, even Trump was lambasting the ruling on Twitter, but somebody had to go into his office and say, actually, Mr. President, they may be saying you're not above the law in theory, but in practice, they're kicking the can. In practice, we can go through, basically an entire congressional term and not have a subpoena enforced. Do you imagine, do you plan on following through on these subpoenas? There's ones that have come out of your committee. There's ones that have come out of Ways and Means, a few others. Do you plan on enforcing those subpoenas next year?
Well, we plan on enforcing them this year. And in fact, we've asked for expedited action by the Supreme Court to send the decision back immediately so that we can go back into the Court of Appeals or the district court and get these records. So we're going to pursue them now. They may very well be able to stonewall up and through the fall. Frankly, for me, the issue is less about getting the records before November. It's more about getting them when the country is at risk. We don't know why this president is so beholden to Vladimir Putin. Is it just his affinity for dictators? Is it just his admiration for Putin? Is it his insecurity, or is it his financial interests in Russia or with Russian oligarchs? This is, why the withholding of these financial records is dangerous, because we don't know whether the president is compromised. At least we don't know whether he's compromised by his financial holdings. And so that's not dependent on November. That's an issue right now. It's been an issue for the last year, 2 years that we've been trying to get these records. So we're going to persist with that litigation. We hope to get it this year, but if we don't, we'll continue until we do, because the country deserves, indeed needs, I think, full answers.
Yeah, and thanks for talking about this, because I do think on the one hand, I'm with you. We have the remedy. We got to get him out. Everything hinges on getting him out. And honestly, looking too far past that right now is a luxury I don't think we can afford. We're in the middle of this pandemic. We're in the middle of a crisis. He's a lawless person. He's supported by these Republicans in the Senate. We have to do everything we can to save the country by removing him. But the only value I think right now and looking forward is I worry, and I think others worry, that next year we have a Democratic president, Democratic Congress, God willing. There's going to be a pandemic, an economic crisis. There's going to be an opportunity to pass some of the most progressive legislation in history. It is going to be a genuine opportunity to move this country forward in a profound way, hopefully. And in that context, I can see a lot of pressure on people like you, who have this oversight responsibility to say, look, with impeachment, there was political blowback. The most important thing is getting these pieces of legislation done. Why are we looking backwards? We failed to look backwards in a lot of respects after Watergate, Iran Contra, after the Bush crimes. There's this habit we have after a politician leaves office to say it's time to move forward. How do you resist that pressure? How do you commit to making sure we look backwards and get to the bottom of all of this so that we know what happened and can prevent it from happening again?
Well, that's just it. It's not just a look backwards. It's a look back to protect the future. Without understanding exactly the magnitude of this president's depravity and those around him, without analyzing what went wrong, then we're not going to remedy the situation. So to me, it's all about protecting the future, but we can't do that being ignorant of what's happened in the past. They may very well be some of that dynamic that you mentioned, and people want to say, let's move forward. Let's, let bygones be bygones. Let's turn our attention, purely in a forward direction. But I think it would be a terrible mistake to think that Donald Trump could not recur. It certainly could recur in the form of Donald Trump. He will be, at this point, a former one-term president. But it could recur very well in other people that lack, basic morality. And so I think it's going to be very important to make sure that we follow up, that we do what's necessary, that we learn the scope of misconduct in this administration, that we hold everyone accountable, and that we pass laws to protect the country going forward. Similarly, and apropos what you're saying about the pandemic, I introduced a bill a month or two ago. Senator Feinstein introduced a Senate version just within this week to establish a 9/11-like commission to analyze what went wrong with our handling of the pandemic as a nation. why we have the worst response in the world instead of the best response. Now, you could say, and this bill won't take effect until next year, that is, the commission wouldn't be formed until next year. Well, why bother looking back when Donald Trump is gone? We know how responsible he was for so much of this. We do need to look back. We need a full accounting of all the reasons why we failed to stop this pandemic and how we protect against it or another one like it in the future. So I think those look backs are very important to protect the country going forward.
Thank you. Before I let you go, I did want to ask you 2 lightning round questions in a segment we are calling Schiff into Higher Gear. Listen, we're all stuck at home. I don't think we're operating at our best, to be honest. Question number 1. Now, Roger Stone has a tattoo of Richard Nixon on his back. You're in the tattoo parlor chair. You have to get a tattoo of a politician on your back. You are offered Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. Who do you get? You have 4 seconds to decide.
Are you really going to open up that fight?
No, I'm not. All right. Correct. You got it. Next question. Last time we spoke, you admitted to us.
If it doesn't have to be a nominee, I would probably pick the dude.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just a huge, just really makes Big Lebowski a big part of your personality. Really makes it a much bigger part. It's a very big part of your personality. Next question. When we last spoke, you admitted, look, because I'm a ferocious interviewer, I think you sort of withered under cross-examination, that you did you lapsed in your veganism in the midst of the impeachment.
I knew you were going to go there.
Look, we've all done some emotional eating in the past few weeks. I can only imagine from your point of view, seeing Roger Stone commuted might have caused this. But have you had a lapse? Have you had a veganism lapse recently?
I have. I broke down and I ate some salmon jerky, and let me tell you, it was pretty awesome. But I want you to know it was wild salmon jerky, and so.
Wow, you're crazy. You're a wild guy. Listen, if you're gonna get a cheeseburger, come on. Salmon jerky is your cheat. Wow. Okay. Congressman Adam Schiff, Chairman Adam Schiff, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And stay safe. And we'll see you again soon.
Great talking to you.